Hi, everyone. Today on Arash's World, we have leadership and life coach, Luce Campagna, and welcome to Arash's World. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
If you can just briefly introduce yourself. I mean, I did already give away that you're a leadership and life coach, but anything else you want to share with us here?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Luce. I have a French accent. I am French Canadian, based in Vancouver here, and I'm a life and leadership coach. What that means is that I work with individuals in the life coach portion of my work to where to begin, to essentially reconnect them to themselves, to where they want to go, and to craft a plan to make it happen. That would be the very summary version. And I can also work with leaders in organizations, again, to do about the same thing, to reconnect them to themselves so they can be better leaders for their teams.
Okay, that's wonderful. So one of the things you say to put people in the driver's seat, and I saw that's in your website. I really like that idea of like, basically giving people control of their lives and the path they're taking and the roadmap and all that. So the next question would be, how would you do this? And it's a tough question, but generally, how would you try to do that?
Well, first of all, the coaching relationship really invites people to be intimate with themselves. Often people are really stuck in the doing part of their life, and they're not so much paying attention to their being. So that's what coaching invites. It's really a journey back to yourself. What is important to me, to my soul, to my heart? What are my values? So a lot of self-knowledge, so self-discovery, essentially. So when people really understand and resonate to what they have inside of themselves, what's important to them, then we can design something so they get more of that. And there's going to be roadblocks in the way that are going to pop, right? There's going to be limiting beliefs about themselves, their ability to be who they want or yearn to be in the world. And when those things come up, and they will, we unpack them, explore what's there.
There will be a lot of detours as well, and you change directions. And we see a lot of people changing their lives currently with the pandemic too. So what impact has the pandemic had
Oh,
on people's lives and their careers and personal lives? What would you say about that?
it's so rich. Where to begin? Yes. People have been in a state of somewhat confusion and a little bit of shock. It's been 18 months. People had to drastically change the way that they live. But one of the biggest impact, and then people started having more time to be with themselves. Whew. And for a lot of people, that was super triggering because they weren't, without all the doing and the external pursuits, a lot of people became really uncomfortable sitting with themselves and started noticing more escapism, whether it's like some checking out behaviors, whether it's video games or just kind of wasting time away to check out from ourselves. A lot of people have noticed that. And then obviously substance abuse has been, I mean, liquor stores were an essential service throughout the pandemic. People still needed that escape. And I know personally a lot of people who have come to terms, like have had a sort of reckoning with themselves by spending more time sitting with themselves. They came face to face with themselves and they're like, I'm not comfortable with this person. What the hell am I doing? Is this my life? So for a lot of people that had the courage to embrace the reckoning, something erupted out of it. And yes.
It's been a wake-up call. I mean, I can talk about my personal experiences, and the person I am now than I was 2 years back, 3 years back is not the same. It's a radical shift. But I'm someone who is introverted. And for me, spending time with myself, I say, bring it on. But even so, people, it's not just with themselves, because they're also with their families. They're also with their spouses. And that could be a good thing, and which is my experience, but that can also be a bad thing, because all the maybe a lot of people realize that they don't actually have much in common with their loved ones or with their partners, and things erupt and things go south and go badly as well.
Well, absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, there's been how many relationships, and the rate of divorce is increasing because people are noticing that the connection is no longer what it used to be, or it never was, perhaps. But yeah, it's been a big awakening time for a lot of us in the pandemic. As a result, I get a lot of clients coming to coaching and just say, I don't think I like where I am, and I'm not sure where I want to go. I'm not sure how to deal with this. I used to have dreams, and now I'm just kind of, people just don't know. And working with a coach in the self-discovery journey will lead you back to yourself, essentially.
And
That's
we
that's
get
my way to help with this.
absolutely, and we get very confused also with who we are. And I think that is just going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out what is really me, what is not me, what is my parents' views of me, what is my friends' views, and my spouse's views, my partner's views. So it's just a mess that we need to untangle. And do you help with that as well? Can you guide people in that direction, or is that what can we do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What came out, I mean, first of all, I created a coaching program. It's called Playbook for Your Life. I mean, this is only one of the modules. It's 7 modules. It's a 9-week program. And this is essentially the work of my own 2020 reckoning, when, external circumstances made me stop my life, complete halt. And I just looked and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And why am I doing it? And where am I going? And I had this state of confusion. And what I did, because I'm a leader through and through, I've applied some of the same leadership principles that I would do for a business to my own life. What's the vision? And I started from there. And a year after, I've changed my life. I've changed a lot of the behaviors that were not serving me, but I didn't know that. Brought everything into light, to a greater level of consciousness through coaching, among other things. And I just put it down on paper. So yeah, I have people coming and I offer the program. Sometimes we just do just more like, not random, but just more coaching what's there. And we just go without having module work. And for some people, they're like, yeah, I want to do this module work. I mean, one of the modules that I work with explores our vision of success. Because you said it, are we living, or are we trying to fill somebody else's checklist, right? What's your vision of success? Is it even yours? Or are you trying to live your dad's dream or your wife's dream? All these situations where we're acting out of alignment with ourselves creates disease, like depression, anxiety, you name it. And I've seen that over and over again. Just people, there's some malaise and unease spread throughout because everything's tangled and confused.
And we're finding ourselves. So you said you've had transitions yourself. Is there anything that you'd like to share about some of your transitions? And what was the motivation to turn towards coaching? Was that something you always wanted to do, or is it something that came up? Or just in my experience, it's been some things I've learned that I want to share with others. Maybe there's part of the reason there as well. But what would be your journey from, in just brief terms, how would you describe that? How did you get to this point?
On a personal level, I had a big, personal reckoning and reconnecting to my heart and understanding why I was having behaviors that were not serving me. I consider myself in recovery now. I've completely changed my relationship with alcohol and with relationships. I used to use those two avenues to check out from myself, to numb myself, to live an illusion outside of myself because I wasn't super comfortable with who I was. So, brought in spiritual practice, brought in a self-care practice. I was completely abandoning myself by not really taking responsibility for myself in some ways. And that's what the recovery path has been, to be radically authentic with myself, take care of myself at a soul level, which then brought me to look at my work and say, okay, I'm loving a lot out of this organizational leadership work, but I'm getting a little bit checked out regarding some parts of it. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to have integrity around that. And I'm going to just switch and do more of what I'm really good at and what I really like and what fuels my soul. And that was coaching. That was coaching individuals towards their greater selves and towards a place where they had increased engagement coming to work. They knew their potential. They wanted to rise. They wanted to embrace their own talent. And that's what I was really good at, to have teams with a high morale. And I'm really passionate about it, obviously. And that ability to lead, I think, came from a really authentic place. And I'm like, okay, deal, I'm going to go and do more of that. And that's when I went back to school in November 2020, after having a few months of reckoning of my own.
Mm-hmm. And a new path of your own, that redirection.
Yeah, new path. And I still want to be involved in organizations. I love organizational dynamics, leadership, team synergy, team performance. That stuff I live for. I really love it. And I love also to empower individuals to get to know themselves, to have some sort of mastery about themselves. We're like musical instrument, right? If we really want to play a nice melody, we have to know ourselves. We have to know how we work. And that's individual work, really.
And it takes a lot of honesty too, of looking at it and saying, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I can develop, and this is what I enjoy. And so there is a lot of information where we get sidetracked, or we think of, okay, I'm going to go after the money, or this is convenient, or this job suits me at this moment. But when I look around, when I listen, and when everyone has different kinds of escape, right? So we can choose also working. That could be escape. That was my escape, basically
100%.
Becoming a workaholic and just like being obsessed about work, or being obsessed about food and have emotional eating and just like trying to deal with it. There are different ways we try to escape, we cope with this situation. But the good news is when people like you talk about this, when I talk about it in my blog, in my interviews, so that people also realize it's okay. I mean, they can identify with it. When I hear in the news that there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with their lives or their jobs and their careers, I feel encouraged. You're like, I'm not the only one.
That's right. No, I mean, that's everywhere. The grand resignation is a big thing where everybody's leaving their job. But you made an excellent point about, can we accept all of ourselves? Can we accept that we still have some unease inside of us that makes us want to check out, or want to overeat, or to get a little drunk, like, can we accept that about ourselves, that we have some unease? And can we be gentle and kind to that part of ourselves too? That is the radical acceptance and compassion for self. And that is the first step to self-care.
And a lot of it comes from trauma that we've had, that we carry around, that we build, keep building. I mean, there's like traumatic experiences on a daily basis, and even at work, outside and interacting with people. But how can we release that? And that's something that I'm very interested in, of like trying to deal with that trauma and try to move on without running away, but actually like confronting it and solving it. What would be your advice for doing that, and how to do that?
Yeah, I can only speak from my own personal experience to what worked, because I am not a trauma therapist. Don't pretend to be one. I'm very familiar with my own trauma and where it led me to what the answers to cope with that trauma were. So, and that's the beautiful journey of doing the work on ourselves. But for me, it's been reparenting. Like in this moment where I have a really old, stunted trauma, stunts some emotional development, right? Some part of me, in me, I still have a 5-year-old kid that feels completely in despair.
I think we all do. We all do.
Frightened. And that person shows up sometimes and wants to drive the bus. And what I can do is acknowledge it, not running away from it, not drink it away, and just say, oh, wow, little Luce, you're showing up and you're really, really frightened. And I can acknowledge it and reassure her and just say, okay, well, I'm driving the bus now. We're middle-aged, we got this. But without acknowledging it, that energy takes over us. But being able to acknowledge it and care for it, reparent it. Just say, no, we're not going to do this behavior to shut you down. We're going to listen to what you have to say and not spend the rest of the day in there. We're going to acknowledge it, put her to bed or whatever, and just make the best decision from our current selves. That's the way that I deal with when that energy shows up. Trauma is that it's in your body. It will show up and take over. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And now I can catch myself saying, oh, what is this people pleasing behavior? Yeah, you're trying to fit in, or you're trying to appease, or I can catch myself having these behaviors and making a place from an empowered place now.
And I like how you're not sugarcoating it. So this is something that is going to be uncomfortable. And so people in today's society want things quickly, fast. It's easier to take medication, to drink, than to actually work through it. And it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. But then you see the reward and you say, yeah, or like playing an instrument. I mean, you can't play the instrument overnight. It takes years of practice. And this is not that different. Sports as well. We use the term coach. And again, you have to be practicing for a long time to get there to the higher.
That's right. That's right. And in coaching, yeah, what we want to get to, or certainly what I want to get to, is a place where I can have enough mastery of myself that I can feel some emotional freedom, some ease in my life, that I can make decisions that are going to be taking me to my North Star, my vision, my life purpose. So getting me closer to it in that same direction. And that is mastery of our own instrument, which is us. And I want to say something about checking out behaviors. What I noticed in my own life is that was self-abandonment. You know, when that voice of being uneasy or, you know, would show up, and that little kid inside of me was feeling frightened. Well, you know, drinking it away was essentially abandoning that person again. To say, no, we don't want to hear you. No, don't cry. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to have emotion. Just hide that away. That was ultimately trauma reenactment. And at some point I said, no more abandoning myself. No more. So that's what it meant for me. And that's why it stuck.
And it's that realization of you don't have to follow that same pattern. I mean, it's something you've been doing for years, and there's always a moment where you can say, okay, I'm going to do something slightly different and take it step by step in a new direction. But as you say, it is hard. We need to be patient. We need to be caring with ourselves. And that inner critic that always tells us, like, we are failing, we are wrong, or you can't do this, and try to kind of look beyond that, I think, and maybe see it as somebody, okay, I appreciate your advice, your opinion. That is just an opinion. I will follow another opinion, and that is a higher being of myself, a higher version of myself, I would say.
Absolutely. It's that vision that we have. And then asking ourselves, who do I need to be? Like, what version of myself, or what do I need to channel within myself to live up to that vision that I have for my life? I mean,
a lot of us are currently, and I can talk by myself too, in what we would call a midlife crisis. I mean, this is
my favorite topic.
The age we're at, and it hits, I think, everyone, even if we don't want to acknowledge it. It's like, I think it's a natural process. Now, my theory is that when we're younger, our defense system is much stronger, antivirus, if you like, so that we protect ourselves from a lot of the negative stuff, the trauma that's building in. But at some point, you can't help it, and you get those sleepless nights, and you get that worry, that preoccupation, and you ask yourself, what is this all about? What am I doing? And you reevaluate your time, with or without pandemic. What the pandemic has done is just like putting a magnifying glass on it, and those who are going through a midlife crisis now, it's tenfold.
Yes, yeah, it forced us to stop, but absolutely. And I think, yeah, maybe in midlife something catches up at some point, you know, all the BS, or it just starts being too much and it catches up with us. And maybe we have more guts to stop long enough to look at it. I think, you know, the life experience adds to that. Or we feel our time is calculated, you know, there's not so much time left, and we're like, is this the life I wanted to live?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these are big midlife questions. I love midlife, coaching people in midlife in this reevaluation and recalibration. I think it's super rich. People call it midlife crisis. I call it midlife awakening,
I
right?
like that. Yeah, it's reframing it as well. And I think with crisis, what I think is with crisis, there's opportunity. Just because you have a
Always.
crisis doesn't mean that things are going to go down. It's like, now what do we do about it? How do we confront it? How do you deal with it? And I think
And
that is an important act of agency too. Like, we have control over large parts of, not all of it, but big chunks of it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. No, getting that sense of empowerment back, and every obstacle or every emotion for that matter has something to tell. It is information. Every reaction that we have is information about our own place in the world, our values. Reaction of anger, can be just a simple reaction to our values or our boundaries being crossed, or something that's important to us that's not being honored out there in society, and we get like all super riled up against it.
And we
It's
see that a lot.
information.
We see that a lot now with a lot of things going wrong. And I think it's kind of a feedback system too. It's like, okay, people get angry, people get very emotional about things, people are very outspoken about things, but then also the reflective part is like, okay, why am I feeling this? What's behind it? And I think that a lot of people don't see and can't see because they don't have the tools. That's when a coach would be really handy. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because in coaching, we explore what's here now. Oh, wow, what is being triggered, and we get curious. And often getting curious just by ourselves can be super jarring. What if I open a can of worm? How am I going to deal with that? Now I'm going to see new things. I'm going to be overwhelmed with insights. So doing it with a coach that's going to walk with you on that journey, and is a sounding board as well, right? And gets insights and listens for what is not being said, and is going to call us out on our BS too, because we have a lot of pre-recorded stories that we can give as to ourselves, but when we have somebody else to be able to call that out, super helpful.
How would you deal with younger adults and younger people nowadays? So there is a part of them that is commendable, and their enthusiasm, their energy, the passion of like for doing the right thing. But there's also the dark side of it where they will say, well, I know better than you guys, and I will tell you guys who are older than me how to do things because you've been wrong for a long time. How would you deal with younger adults in your coaching?
Arash, I think I would tell them to get a coach that has their pulse on today's youth a little bit more.
Okay.
Somebody that really understands the dynamic therein. I don't think I'm the best person to understand. I'm trying to keep up because I have teenagers. But in terms of the millennial debate of what's good about them and what's not good about them, I would say I don't understand the dynamic enough to be a good coach for somebody like that.
And I think that's wonderful of also being upfront and honest, and not thinking that you can handle anything, of just saying, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I have experience with, and this is something that I feel is not within my realm, or somebody else could maybe do a better job with it. And I think that's why.
And again, I'm catching myself. That could be a limiting belief. I mean,
At the same
ultimately,
time,
coaches are trained to coach anybody in any circumstances. But I'm a human, and I have my favorite areas to coach in, because it also activates like a lot of attunement within myself. And as coaches, we're not supposed to be able to understand what the client is going through, but sometimes it helps also to give us insights around it. So yeah.
And I mean that creating that kind of distance, I think, is not necessarily a good approach. I think we should really feel the other person's suffering, to really understand where they're coming from. And if we do have own experiences with that particular part of our lives, then we can really relate to that in a deeper way. Another thing that was coming to my mind is that although idealistically we would say, yes, I can help anybody, and like we're talking not limiting our beliefs, but in reality, we can only help those who want to be helped. So if
Yeah.
these people let's say, come with an attitude, they say, I know better than you, I'm not going to follow your advice. It doesn't matter who they're talking to, even if they're experienced, it won't work. The same way
Again,
as
that
somebody who doesn't want to quit smoking, there's nothing you can do about that.
and again, that would be in a one-on-one context. I have coached younger people in a one-on-one context. Yeah, I would get curious about what their motivations are, where their values are within them, and what's important. I would totally be able to give them guidance. But in you know, what I took the question initially as is, you know, in the content, you know, context of society right now, and the battle of the generations, definitely I wouldn't have an opinion on that. But if somebody, a young person, was coaching me, it was coming to coaching with me, it would be about finding their true selves and what do they want and where do they want to get it and what's getting in their way. Like, you know, the framework would be the same.
Exactly. I think that, and that is the point too. It's like whatever we see, whatever is manifested in the situation is because they are looking for themselves and they're trying to find their identity. And in some ways, they might not connect with who they really are. And it manifests itself in different ways. So in that sense too, again, the idea of not limiting yourself, it's like, you know what, we can try. I can see if it works for you, and then we can take it from there. I want to shift a bit more because you are a coach, a life coach, but also a leadership coach. I want to look a bit more at leadership. What makes a good leader according to you?
Oh, where to begin? Where to begin? Leadership for me, I've always said to whoever wants to hear it, leadership starts with self. So how can you go and guide other people and lead other people if you're not even doing it with yourself? I think your ability to meet your people, you can only meet your people as deep as you have been with yourselves. So leaders come to me because they know how to delegate or supposedly, you know, lead people, but they say something's missing. They're missing a connection. Like they're not getting the synergy that they think they can get. And again, I tend to coach people in middle age, and they're like, I think I'm doing the right thing, and I will put a smile on because I know I'm supposed to be relating, but it doesn't come from the heart. True leadership comes from the ability to truly, authentically connect and not being scared of what the person's going to bring to the table. People are emotional creatures that have their own wishes and dreams and agendas to some, you know. And I think a lot of leaders or managers that are maybe not truly leaders, they get scared. They avoid conversations. They get scared of getting curveballs. What if this person gets all intense on me? You know, and they're really scared because they haven't met themselves at a true level and they don't have the mastery of themselves. As leader, once we have met ourselves at a deeper level and understand the emotional landscape and our inner landscape and have compassion and acceptance, we're much more able to show up for people. And when people in my office used to come with big emotions and big conflict and you know, and I was able to hold space for them and just say, okay, yeah, and unpack it and look at it with a different lens and not feel triggered because, you know, I'm not going to have all the answers. Oh, what happens if I don't have all the answers? I might not. We're just two humans. And that's, so this ability to connect, I think is the foundation to have trust. And that should be at the base of true leadership, I believe.
I completely agree. But the problem is you have a lot of companies who say, we are looking for a true leader. We want somebody who thinks outside of the box. But then the person they hire for the position does not do any of those things and ends up being somebody who's very limited in their leadership capacities. And that's both things I've seen, also personal experience, where I say, I can see leaders in this group, but they are not the ones who are being promoted in the company.
That's right.
So how can we deal with that? Because it is quite frustrating and it's not helping anyone. It's not helping the company. It's not helping the employees. It's not helping the clients. It is a total disaster in many cases, actually.
I know there's a big difference between the authority, between having a title, like a manager title does not make you a leader. And I mean, absolutely. I used to have people on my team that were individual contributors with no title that had way more leadership than other people I worked with that were at my level of, you know, it really, And what I've seen is that some managers, they just have that reluctance to give people control, autonomy, to let them grow to a certain level. They're threatened. So what's it going to say about me? I'm a manager, I'm a marketing manager. If these people come up with better ideas and better strategies than me, what does it say about me? And I'm threatened, so I'm going to keep this person small. That's a very autocratic way, and it does not. And what you're talking about, that you're talking about the other side of the yeah, for sure. What we want is, and that's what I did in leadership, and that's why my teams were thriving and loving what they did, gave them purpose. We had a clear vision, clear purpose, engaging vision, where they were invited to contribute in teamwork. But that presupposed that I wasn't afraid to be proved wrong or out of date, or with, I wasn't afraid to be say, okay, Luce, that's kind of like 20 years ago marketing, we're going to do this. And I'm like, yes. Ultimately, I wanted the people below me on the org chart to rise up to a level where they can take my job, because I'm growth oriented as well, and I will go and take another job. So I was interested in growing them, even if it means they have to leave the company to go work somewhere else at an equivalent level than me. I encourage growth. And that's what I think leadership, true good leaders have a growth mindset.
And I like how we say it 20 years ago, because a lot of the concepts people have about the labor market, about schools as well, is based on ideas that is very old, and that doesn't work. One of the ideas is, for example, at work, the 9-to-5 job, the idea of if you are stuck in this place, in this prison, let's call it a prison, which is the office, then you're going to be more productive. But now we actually have studies who show the exact opposite. Now that people are working remotely and they have a more flexible schedule, or the possibility of having a 4-day weekend instead of 5 days, it actually drives productivity.
Give people autonomy.
That's it.
You got a common purpose. Give them autonomy, with support as needed. But that's the thing, as leaders, it's not about people conforming to our rigid model. It's about ourselves adapting to what people need to thrive, rise, and grow. So for some people, like me, I like office work. I like to have an office. I like to be on site, and some people work really well at home. It's know what works for your team members. Give them more of that. Give them stretch assignments as well, sometimes, just to get out, outside. But ultimately, for me as a leader, I've always taken great pride in having people that are better than me on certain things. I want to surround myself with motivated people who are super good at what they do. I think that speaks for a good leader.
Emotional intelligence, empathy, compassion, and we see a one size fits all. If everybody's in the office from 9 to 5, you have to be there too, even if you don't like it. And that is not helping. And we see the same in education now. Let's look, for example, if you look at high school or elementary school, it's the time you do. You've been here from 9 to 3, and you've been here for a whole year. And therefore, now you can go to the next level. You serve time.
Yeah.
You serve time in this prison, which doesn't really mean that you actually learned something, or that you actually grew, or that anything stuck there. It just, I did my time and now I can graduate. And I think that is, again, a misconception too that we have in terms of education. As somebody who has been in education for decades now myself, and I see it all the time, and it is so frustrating as well.
Well, control is something, like an insecure manager will be afraid to give control to other people and to lose control, and they want to know everything and they micromanage. Yeah, that's a roadblock. To
insecurity is the right word. Yeah, micromanaging.
That's right.
You know that.
Yeah. But they don't know that. They don't know that. But again, and perfectionism is another thing. Let people be the humans that they're going to be. We're just humans. Beyond the performance, we're just humans. And what we know in conscious leadership is that the performance will go up if the purpose is right, and if there's enough autonomy, and ability to expand.
And what you said earlier, I think there's also the element of fear. It's like, what will happen? They're afraid of their own position because they say, here is competition. And this is our mind frame. But When we look at it, we just see everything as a potential source of competition, so that it's not just the other companies, it's the people within the company. So basically everyone is on their own trying to survive, and that is not helping anybody, least of all the company.
Yeah, culture of insecurity. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. So you said earlier, how do we change that? It needs to start from the top.
Yeah.
It needs to start with a leader that can show up with an open heart and say, this is my vision for this company, and I don't have all the answers. Will you work with that? Arash, you're awesome at this. So and so, you're awesome at this. Can everybody right here commit to work, to bring to the table what they have to bring? We're going to collaborate. I really don't have all the answers. You guys own this as much as I do. This is our project.
But that's also
And
us also accepting our own places. And even though it's at the lower spots, if you like, lower positions, we can demand things. And we see that too with like people who say, you know what, no, we're not satisfied with this, and we are going to speak against that. So there is that movement too. It's like, you know what, you need to change your ways of doing things. And that is a great change. That is a great movement that is happening. And that is
well,
also a lot of people resign because they cannot bring about those changes that they want.
it's okay for leaders to have a vision of what excellence looks like and to work towards that. But also they have to be able to talk to their people and say, how can I help?
Exactly. Yeah.
You're paid 40 hours a week, or you're paid to deliver this. Yeah, there's deliverables to hit. There is. How can I help as a leader you to thrive?
For me, an ideal manager is a coach as well.
Yeah,
Like, you know, I will try to empower you
that's
because
right.
we're in this together. And when the team grows, everybody grows. And I see the same with my family. And we say, you know, we're a team, we work together. If you are successful in something, then that is good for everyone. But you see a lot of families that are dysfunctional and where they get envious. They're like, okay, now you have success, why not me? And then they fight among each other and sibling rivalry and all that. And I just don't understand that. But again, I do understand it at the same time, because it is that lack of confidence, that insecurity, that fear of being less, you know, of seeming less in front of others. And so that is troublesome. One
It
thing
is.
sorry.
So in my work with leaders, we're gonna, they bring situations where they were snappy, or they felt there's somebody they don't like to relate to. And I'm like, okay. And we just get curious about what's there, what's underneath the
Why?
reaction,
Yes.
what's underneath the malaise with so and so. Oh, she comes to my office and this and that. And then I'm like, okay, what are you scared of? Okay, and what is it that you want to say that you can't? And we just unpack it and understand what is motivating these reactions. And ultimately, a leader who's able to meet themselves at that level is no longer afraid to have conversations, and is no longer afraid to tell people whether they have good performance or bad performance and what needs to happen. And they're no longer afraid to be flexible to their team members so that their team members can rise.
And we take criticism way too personal in many cases, where you can see it as the opportunity. Okay, this is how I can improve. And when you get, it depends if it comes from an authentic source, right? If it comes from the heart and you really want people to succeed, and say, this is why. And as an instructor, that's what I do with my students. It's not to belittle them or ridicule them. It's like, I want you to succeed. So that's why I'm giving you this criticism, and I might use the authority of grades to guide you hopefully in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I think that people don't see that opportunity, that learning, that growth opportunity that is in feedback that we get, honest feedback from others. Yeah.
Totally. Performance appraisal needs to happen. There needs to be some measurements for people to understand where they are and be fully accountable for their performance. Good leadership is not just let people do whatever they want. There also needs to be, there are deliverables and measurables that we need to attain as a team, of course. But instead of just beating it out of them, is just get them to rise to it. And then, when people fail, I want to be told if I'm doing something wrong. I want to be told and explain what happened. We're all humans. I make my fair share of mistakes all the time. And I mean,
Yeah, but it's
And I
that
want to
focus.
learn from it.
Exactly, but it's that focus on the negative that is holding us back, because it's say you have like I have an evaluation of 50 students, but one student was unsatisfied. And to overblow that, to take it as an insult, I failed because of one, and that's like, was it 2%? And that is also the focus of perhaps managers, like what happened to that one student? Let's forget about the 49 other students who had a great time. Why not that one? I think that is the wrong approach.
But again, if somebody is uncomfortable with themselves, they don't allow themselves to be humans, then people are really scared. In that case, I would say, what are you scared of? Like because my company is going to think that I'm not really good. Yeah. And what's under that? Well, I need to be good. Otherwise, I'm not worthy. Okay. What's under that? And just kind of just really get curious. And at the end of a session like that, the person's like, oh, yeah, it's not really the end of the world. That's a really old childlike energy in me that is scared to probably be abandoned of some kind of really old story, no matter what the narrative is. And that takes over even right now in their midlife careers, right?
And we have different roles, and we're more complex than that. So if that's one part of you, there are all the other parts that are going really well, but it just like tries to overshadow all the good parts that we have, because it's like you say, and I completely agree with that. That's been a shift for me as well. It's like your job does not define you. It doesn't say who you are, because you can switch your job, and that is okay. So you can suddenly take a different career, and suddenly what happened to the person you were before? But there is a true essence of you that responds to it. And if it's a job that aligns more with who you are, then that is something that you will identify with more. So, but a lot of us think that they are the jobs. And that's when we use the language, what are you? And what do you do? I am. And then we have the job. But I am thinking it's more than that. I'm also a father. I'm also a husband. I'm also a friend. I'm also a blogger, a writer, and so on. But we lose that perspective. And it's
I
just
love
like
that.
jobs that are like driving us. And if, let's say, God forbid, you're unemployed, you are a failure.
Yeah,
In the views of society,
that's right. No, but I mean, I love what you said. We all have different buckets, do you know how many people I hear? Yeah, I'm a mom. Yeah, but once the kids leave the nest, like, what are you gonna do? And then people kind of feel like, oh, what am I gonna do? Who am I
That's
gonna
another
focus
thing.
on?
Yes, you identify with that one role, but again, there's so much more that we need to identify with. And I want to get to romance, romantic love, and the idea of soulmates. And I believe in soulmates, and that is something that not everyone shares. And a lot of like people, psychologists, coaches I talk to, they say, well, it depends. Anybody could be it. There is no special someone. And I understand that, but I also disagree with that. So how would you say, like, in terms of love, of finding a person who is truly special and fits with who we are?
I don't know if I believe in soulmates, to be
Okay.
honest, or
Yeah.
twin flames or all that stuff. What I know to be true is that in order, for me anyway, in order to meet somebody, how can I say that? I had to get to a level of self-knowledge, of mastery of myself, and owning every part of who I was without running away from it before I could meet somebody who had done the same. And then the potential for a conscious relationship exists. I've tried to have conscious relationships with people before. I still have some shadows and some blind spots. And they also did, often to a greater extent. And it was just really difficult to build something without a certain level of awareness and consciousness of our own patterns. We're two people in midlife. How are you supposed to, we all have idiosyncrasies and ideas about what this should be or this should feel. So how are you supposed to blend that? It has to be a completely, transparent and conscious, self-concepts. Two self-concepts come together and say, oh yeah, I see it, and this Yeah, for sure.
I like to see it as kind of the team that you have and just being a leader, and basically both are engaged in it and both are growing and both are sharing their thoughts and opinion, but it's like the relationship is the third entity there. That's
Yeah.
like a child you would have. It's just like, and it grows. I mean, it's, you start off with infancy in your relationship, and it's something that given the right circumstances will grow or doesn't. Again, that's another choice too, and it depends how it goes. People are sometimes stuck at the same level, or they go different directions, and that happens too.
I guess we all want something different, but for me, I just wanted something really conscious, like you know, and yeah, the parallel to organizations, it's not that different, right? To be able to treat it like a third entity. So I know in my relationships, we have guiding principles, just like you would do. There's a vision for the relationship. There's guiding principles. What are the non-negotiable of this relationship?
I
And
like
those
that.
are the same guiding principles that we share. We came with them together. And those are the pillars. I know that I can always count on that those are important, not just for me. I want my needs met. I need this, I need that. And I don't know what he needs because we don't talk about it. So, and then people just have quests on each of their side and, you know, pull the blanket here and there and my needs and your needs. So when we're able to actually maintain and or give maintenance, you know, to this relationship as an entity and say the relationships needs more of that right now, you know, and being able to treat it with reverence and with respect.
And yeah,
I think there's just a tremendous potential there, but it
absolutely.
requires a level of intentionality
Yes.
and being comfortable and fully in acceptance of what our needs and desires are.
And I think there's a misconception of freedom in different levels, whether it's political freedom or society or even in relationships. People are so confused about that, and we see where people are, they say we want more freedom and rights, but then they do not look at other people's rights. And you see the same in relationships too, where it's like, no, I'm free to do what I want to do, and it's like, no, there are these guiding principles that you do have to follow for this to work.
It's super interesting because my partner and I recently watched a podcast, and you know, and I've then downloaded a book about that, where commitment is seen as the ultimate freedom, and we're both watching that together, and we're like, oh yeah. And what I understand is that I no longer have to rely on steady texts and phone calls and seeing him 3 times a week to feel like completely accepted and loved. Um, I no longer need to do that. That's emotional freedom for me because I know we're fully committed. We are fully committed because we talk about it. We have our values, guiding principle, which we work on. Like, I mean, you know, it's part of the DNA of the relationship. And because it's so known and so conscious, I no longer have to have these signs to not become anxious in the relationship. I feel emotional freedom. He gets freedom out of that. Some days we're not going to talk to each other until 7 o'clock at night. It's fine. So that is freedom that we can, and freedom to be exactly who we are, to show up at the vibrational level that we might be, with sometimes some pains and aches, and sometimes we need support, and sometimes we need more room to breathe, and being able to authentically speak that readiness level to the other person because you're fully committed. That's a tremendous amount of freedom. So yeah, people could say freedom is being without commitment. I say I'm starting to realize that there's a tremendous amount of freedom that comes from being committed.
Being committed depends what you're committed to, but if you believe in it, people are committed to religious beliefs. I'm committed to writing, I'm committed to reading, and I see it as something that's free. I'm committed to my relationship, and it's out of my own will. I'm choosing it. So, and
Right.
the idea of also like representing, and that's what's happening currently in many cases, representing marriage as an institution that limits you and so on. I completely disagree with that. I think that's the ultimate freedom, but depends again who you're married to. So that,
That's right.
yeah.
But what I commit to in my relationship is I picked this relationship because it was completely aligned with who I am.
Exactly.
So by living this relationship, I am committed to myself. I am committed to having a really healthy conscious relationship is important to me. I'm committed to myself to do that. And I'm committed, to this person who I found on my path and are just as aligned to themselves as I am. So we can do life together in a way that's not codependent, and just kind of free in a way.
Exactly. I think we did cover pretty much a lot of things that you do. I wanted to look at your position, your job as a leadership coach as well as life coach. I think I have a great idea. It's wonderful ideas that you have, and I really like your approach in that sense. And I think we cover like pretty much anything that would fall into that. Is there anything else you want to mention or talk about before we wrap up here for today?
No, I love what I do. I just love what I do. I love that I'm able to be a sounding board for people on their very intimate journey to themselves and to live the life that they want to live. I feel honored to work with clients and have that really privileged role. I love what I do, and I like to surround myself with people that are curious about their journey. We're all humans just trying to have a wonderful experience. Yeah.
And we feel that. So when we make a difference in somebody's life, it comes back to us, and it's that kind of sense of gratitude that they give to us, and we take, and then we give to them, and it's just like continuously growing in a positive way. So instead of being stuck in a job that you hate or don't like, or you just do because of the wrong reason, because for the wrong reasons, and then you are not feeling that, and you're missing out. And I read somewhere that most heart attacks happen on Mondays because people don't want to go to work. And so that is quite interesting. So if your heart is not in something, whether it's a relationship, your job, or where you are, maybe you don't like your location, your country, your culture, whatever it is, I think you need to find something that is more attuned with yourself, just for your health.
That's really sad. In closing, I would say, in life coaching, or leadership coaching, we'll explore, what's under, what is motivating, our choices and all that. But ultimately, it doesn't mean you have to change your life. If you decide that, ultimately the client always has a choice, right?
Sometimes it's minor adjustments where you realize, oh, this is actually how I can see it, just a shift in your mind, and you just say your mindset, and you say, oh, wait, I do like this. I just didn't notice it, right? Or it could be that big drastic change that we talked about, going a completely different direction.
You're right. Even minor tweaks can bring so much more fulfillment. It's a mindset thing, and having somebody external to work with you on that is just super rich.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful interview. Thank you so much. Best of luck to you. And thank you for being on Arash's World.